Blake Lively was taking over. Another simple favor.
I could give a damn about anything going on in this movie because it was absolutely trash.
Honey, grab your popcorn and a glass of something strong because Blake Lively just had a full-blown meltdown, like diva tantrum levels of meltdown. After getting exposed for absolutely hijacking another simple favor, she's not just mad, she's livid. And yes, babes, it's another one again.
She doesn't want to say that Blake Lively just put her own lines in there without her knowledge. I mean, she's that.
The same stans who used to worship the ground she walked on, yeah, they're now dragging her harder than a red carpet gown on grass. It's giving It Ends With Us PTSD, because guess what? Blake's back at it, turning yet another film into a personal mess express. Someone stop her, please.
Proves again that she doesn't take on a part of a movie as an actress. She takes on a part of a movie as I'm doing everything here and everyone step aside because Blake Lively is in the house and it's going to be my way or the highway.
All right, sit down because this is where it gets deliciously tragic. Blake really thought this sequel was going to be her big, fabulous cinematic moment. Spoiler alert, it was not. On May 1st, 2024, Another Simple Favor got dumped, not released, dumped on Amazon Prime like some forgotten leftover. No premiere, no red carpet, not even a cheap indie theater run. Baby, it didn't drop, it plummeted.
Is the worst movie you've ever seen in your entire life, and then it becomes something so unhinged that I've never seen anything like it before.
Straight to streaming, and not the cute Netflix front page treatment either. No. This thing was so deep in Prime's carousel, you had to scroll like you were searching for your lost dignity after sitting through the first 15 minutes. Embarrassing.
This reporter says, could you give me an example? And she said, my favorite line in the first movie that made me laugh every time that I did not write is when Blake is at a playground with Anna and she talks about working for a tough boss. And she says, oh, they will F you in the face. That line always makes me...
And let's not forget, the first movie actually made Cohen. Like, hello. A Simple Favor back in 2018 pulled in a clean $97,600,000, 0 cents, off a $20 million, 0 cents budget. That's success, right? But this sequel? Treated like it was radioactive. Amazon just chucked it behind 5 layers of cat documentaries and forgotten thrillers. Maybe they were hoping no one would find it. Too bad we did, and we are traumatized.
One of the dumbest movies I've ever seen. The plots, the twists are so stupid and really gross. And the dialogue is terrible. And here, there is actually an article in New York Post pointing out that there were big errors.
Critics didn't just dislike it, babe, they scorched it. It wasn't meh. It was fire this into the sun levels of bad. And what does Miss Blake do while the internet is busy memeing her $5 0 cents budget flop fest? Ooh, she's posting aesthetic stories like she just won Cannes. Girl, your movie is burning and you out here playing Pinterest princess.
And then the reporter mentions that big hat that we've seen in the trailer. If you haven't seen the movie, she's wearing this humongous hat and she's asking about the hat.
Google rating tanked to a tragic 2.2 out of 5 within literal days. That's lower than Sharknado 5, darling. Even TikTok said it's the worst sequel ever made. And when TikTok unites in hatred, that's when you know it's beyond repair. People weren't even laughing. They were concerned for their brains, their time, and their poor abused Wi-Fi. And the real tea, Blake hijacked the entire production like it was her own personal vision board.
Always lines that are news to me and in a good way.
Jessica Charza, the co-writer, wasn't even playing nice. Sis went on record saying there were lines in the final cut that she had never written. Blake just rolled in, pen blazing, tossing in lines like it was open mic improv night, not a collaboration, a takeover. She rewrote the script like it was her fan fiction. Girl thought she was J.K. Rowling.
It really is a collaborative process, and there are a lot of funny lines that I either didn't write or don't remember writing, and it could have come from a number of sources. Okay.
Let's talk about that cottagecore fever dream she slapped on the movie. Gingham everything. Retro Stepford wife hairstyles, vintage everything. Guess who thought of it? Blake. She didn't just act, she styled, scripted, probably catered the set too. I wouldn't be shocked if she yelled action herself. She was doing everything. except acting.
So she don't remember if she wrote a line. If you're a writer, you remember everything that you write. And she doesn't want to say that Blake Lively just put her own lines in there without her knowledge.
And the hat. Oh my God, the hat. That giant piece of fabric from the trailer that looked like a beach umbrella got into a bar fight with a parasail. Blake saw it in Capri and decided it had to be in the movie. No discussion, just vibes, and everyone let her. Director Paul Feig, he might as well have been zip-tied to a chair, smiling through gritted teeth while Blake bulldozed every ounce of creative control. Blink twice if you need help, Paul.
Blake's reaction to reading that in the script. What was Paul's reaction? And then she says, I was on strike during a lot of these developments and these conversations, and so I wasn't part of all of them. But I think Blake really was behind this decision. I don't think it was handed to her without her participation.
Oh, but babes, we're not even at the most unhinged part. The plot? A flaming hot mess. They decided in their infinite wisdom to throw in triplets? Yes, 3 different Blakes. Who'd ask for that? No one, but we got it. And if that wasn't enough to make your soul leave your body, wait for it. One of them makes out with another one. Blake kissing herself. I can't.
There's actually an article in New York Post pointing out that there were big errors in this film as well. There is a scene where Blake Lively kisses herself. She's kissing her triplets, one of her triplets.
Reviewers weren't confused, they were shook. One even called the whole thing a psychological threat. Another said it was like the Parent Trap on acid, dressed in heels and drowning in delusion. Not so much for me being redacted. Yeah, no exaggeration, darling. Triplet incest kisses, fake suicides, murder mysteries at a chaotic Capri wedding. It was like someone wrote the script by throwing darts at a wall full of buzzwords and praying for magic.
She really is interested in cottagecore, and I just didn't know what it was when she brought it up. Yes, so she didn't just have a saying in the writing, she of course had a saying in the costumes. And here we go. I wanted to ask about the fashion in the film because Emily's extravagant style adds to a lot to.
And don't even get me started on the tone. 1 minute, Anna Kendrick's doing her quirky true crime podcast shtick, and the next, boom, you've got Blake Lively making out with herself like it's some kind of avant-garde art film no one asked for. No build-up, no purpose, no logic, just vibes and trauma.
It continues because they're talking about. The co-writer is talking about that there's kind of a twisted love story between Anna Kendrick's character and Blake Lively's character. There's so many twisted love stories in that movie, by the way, and it's horrible. I've talked about it. And then the reporter asks, what was Blake's reaction to reading that in the script?
And before anyone tries to say maybe it was supposed to be edgy or satirical, please sit down. The reviews shut that fantasy down real quick. One said it felt like Murder Mystery 2 on mushrooms. Another called it Sharknado without the charm. This wasn't a campy guilty pleasure. It was cinema gone rogue. Not even Blake's most delusional fans could explain what the hell she was going for. Spoiler, neither could she.
So bad for her case. Every time something is mentioned, every time she's out in public, and then she's allowing someone to mock the entire thing on her Instagram.
Worst part, no one wants to take ownership of this Frankenstein's monster. Jessica Charz's like, that wasn't me. Paul Feig's out here praising Blake like he's under contract or under duress. Meanwhile, Blake still flooding Instagram with behind-the-scenes selfies like she just reinvented Knives Out. Girl, no, that wasn't a movie. That was a cry for help in pastels.
Reporter is so good at what she's doing. She keeps asking her how much influence Blake had on everything. There's so many questions about it, and this woman keeps sharing about how much Blake had.
So here's the real twist. Blake's so-called villain era? Yeah, she didn't play the villain, honey. She was the villain. Not the fabulous Cruella kind. More like the delusional, overstyled, under-directed chaos demon who rewrote scenes, made out with herself, and called it cinema. She didn't just go off. She went off the rails. Off the plot, off the list of anyone in Hollywood who wants to work with her again. Period. You know how actors love to say they're entering their villain era, like it's some bold artistic transformation? Yeah. In Blake's case, this wasn't a transformation, it was a reveal. She didn't become a villain, she just stopped pretending not to be one. Audiences didn't think she was playing a sociopath. They thought this was a straight-up documentary. That performance? wasn't acting. That was just Blake Lively dipped in delusion and wrapped in a trench coat. And the kicker? She didn't even remember if she wrote her own lines. Sis, if you're a writer, you remember everything you write. Jessica wasn't trying to shade her, but that tea practically spilled itself. Critics, they didn't hold back. They said she was deadpan, flat, emotionally vacant. That's not shade. That's IKEA level shade. Like, reviewers were out here describing her performance the way you'd describe an unassembled dresser. That infamous "I did it for you" monologue, clearly written to be Blake's big Oscar bait moment. Instead, it landed like a brick, tossed it through a glass coffee table. One reviewer said she looked like a mannequin trying to act emotional. Another? TikTokers with ring lights and zero acting training could have done better. Tell me that's not the meanest and most accurate drag you've ever heard. This wasn't just tension, it was a full-on Cold War wrapped in designer outfits. Those fake smiles on the press tour? LOL. You could feel the frostbite. Remember that shady little moment where Anna not so subtly dragged Blake for hijacking speeches? She didn't whisper it, she didn't hide it, she dropped it like a mic. The sarcasm in her eyes, iconic. That wasn't a co-star talking, that was a woman done with the nonsense. Cause here's the truth, Blake doesn't just join a film, she colonizes it. It becomes the Blake Lively show jam. Everyone else, step aside. Then there's the photos. Ooh, the press tour photos, Blake showing up in stilettos so high she was basically looking down on Anna, literally and figuratively. People noticed. It looked like Blake was using her heels as a dominance move, and let's be honest, she totally was. This man greenlit a script that reads like someone's unhinged Wattpad fanfic mixed with unresolved therapy trauma. It's not a plot, it's a collage of bad decisions. Critics didn't even sugarcoat it. One literally said, "This film has a fetish-level obsession with incest-adjacent plot lines." That's not a drag, that's a professional red flag. All went from directing Melissa McCarthy throwing comedic punches to directing Blake Lively kissing her clone. Not evolution, darling. Devolution. Creative bankruptcy in couture. Jessica Charzer even admitted on the record that she didn't recognize whole lines in the film. She was like, "I didn't write that." And when asked to give an example, she dropped a bomb, her favorite line from the first film, the one with the tough boss. Blake just made that up, like she was at a tea party, scribbling in glitter pen. Not even joking. This is how you end up with a film that looks like someone's manic Instagram story highlight reel. Even Reddit was done. Entire threads dedicated to begging Paul Feig to touch grass and never write again. Weren't dragging him? They were staging an intervention. Because this wasn't a movie. This was a flaming ego parade wrapped in linen and lace. It disrespected everyone involved, especially the poor viewers who gave it a chance and came out with psychological scars. One TikToker said, "I don't think I've ever seen a movie that bad. And I watched the Joker sequel. Brutal, iconic, true." And this isn't about hopping on a Blake Lively hate train, okay? This is about acknowledging the facts, the receipts, the trauma. Now, let's take a tragic little stroll through the aftermath, shall we? Because if you thought the critics were ruthless, oh honey, the audience went full savage mode. I mean, scorched earth, no mercy, roast everything kind of savage. Google rating, a disgraceful 2.2 out of 5. That's not bad. That's infamous. That's please delete this from the server, bad. That's Sharknado minus the fun, minus the sharks, but somehow still drenched in sequins. Rotten Tomatoes didn't save it either. Not even the usual, "Oh, it's a misunderstood masterpiece" defenders showed up. It was crickets, followed by pitchforks. And Twitter, TikTok, forget it. They turned this film into a digital bonfire. Fresh roast clips every hour. I Survived, Another Simple Favor is basically a trauma club now. The long-term damage? Devastating. Blake didn't just trip. She nuked her brand. She strutted into her so-called villain era in a $5,000 0-cents hat, hijacked an entire movie, torpedoed Anna Kendrick's career detour, and dragged poor Paul Feig down to the depths of cinematic embarrassment. And the worst part? She still thinks she's served. Blake's out here posting dreamy BTS pics like she just dropped Gone Girl 2. Baby, no, you didn't serve cinema. You served delusion on a Pinterest platter. Let's talk about that hat again. Because yes, it deserves its own paragraph. She found that monstrosity in Capri, slapped it on her head, and declared it important. That hat had more screen time than several supporting actors. And the co-writer confirmed, it wasn't even planned. Just Blake playing dress up mid-shoot and making everyone go along along with it like she was the Queen of Italy. And Paul Feig, Putty used to be respected. Now you're out here defending scenes where Blake makes out with herself and calling it bold. Bold? This is what happens when no one says no. This movie will go down in history not as a sequel, but as a cautionary tale. A textbook case of unchecked ego wrecking a perfectly decent franchise. And Blake, she really thought no one would notice, that we'd all just nod along like, oh wow, fashion and plot and drama. No, we saw it and we'll never unsee it. Because this wasn't reinvention, it was regression. A crash course in how to alienate your fans, your co-stars, your director, and your future opportunities all in one go. The only thing she reinvented was the art of sabotage. People on Reddit are literally calling for a moratorium on Paul Feig's career, not even a roast at this point. It's an intervention. They're worried. We're all worried. This film didn't just flop. It humiliated everyone it touched. It insulted audiences, it confused critics, and it turned what should have been a sleek little thriller into a bloated, ego-drenched fever dream with pastel filter overlays. We're talking broken continuity, psychological triplet trauma, self-kissing scenes, emotional vacuum performances, and a plot that makes Riverdale look coherent. The internet is treating this movie like a cinematic car crash. Can't look away, but everyone's asking, how the hell did this get made? Blake hijacked the movie. She hijacked the script. She hijacked her own reputation. And what we're left with? A scorched set, a deleted group chat, and two former co-stars who probably blocked each other on every app imaginable. So if you made it through this mess of a movie, first of all, congratulations. You deserve a trophy and maybe a therapist. Drop your thoughts below. Vent, heal, and for the love of cinema, brace yourself for whatever Blake Lively ruins next. Because at this point, the only thing she hasn't hijacked is the Wi-Fi.